Let me put this in the context of dating. How many times have you ever mutually parted ways with a woman? I have one. She thought I was funny. I thought she was interesting. We got to dinner and she found me offensive and abrasive and I found her dull. And that all kind of materialized before like our appetizers came out. We put our food order in and I just remember like knowing after we put our food order in that it was a mistake. You're not happy. You're not having a good time. There's clearly somewhere else you'd rather be. Well, my friends are just out at happy hour. I was like, you should probably be. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rockpile Report podcast. I'm your host, Bills season ticket holder Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Grier. Halloween, Chris, has come and gone. Now, I know that you're not a Christmas guy. I know you don't love that holiday.
It's the worst.
Thanksgiving's your favorite.
Correct.
Okay. So where does Halloween slot into your holiday hierarchy?
All the other holidays. Dead last. They don't mean shit to me.
Nothing? You have
4th
no
of
love
July,
for Halloween?
Memorial Day, Halloween, Christmas, St. Patrick's Day, Arbor Day, New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. They can all get bent.
White suits. What is it? A white Lamborghini. Live for New Year's Eve. With that haircut, dude, you're right there eating sloppy steaks at Trufani's. You have no idea what I'm referencing, and I love every second of that. I'm shocked you don't like Halloween because you've literally come over to my house and just decimated bowls of candy.
Yeah, no.
Me and my wife actually have a strategy where when we have candy, we have to offload. We fill up bowls of it when you come over and leave them out strategically where we think you might be so that we can offload the candy.
I'm never coming over again until next year.
So what was really funny about Halloween candy, right? This year, Halloween trick-or-treating, I've got 2 kids who are getting old enough to really understand like what the spirit of the night's supposed to be. It's supposed to be about having fun, walking around, getting some candy, having a couple spooks and thrills, and, you know, maybe you get scared a couple times. A lot of fun. But my son explaining to my father-in-law what the dad tax was probably my proudest moment of the entire thing. Where he was just like, oh, dad tax. Dad just gets to take that because, and I was like, yeah, you're right. 5.5%, Jack. 5.5% of all the candy you bring in this home is subject to a dad tax if I see fit to enforce it. What's funny is I'm not a big candy guy. Unlike you, like I'm the complete opposite of you. I like where you'll crush miniature candies. If you put a bag of tortilla chips and salsa in front of me, I'll eat that whole bag and then I'll be sick for a day. I know the jokes are writing themselves already in your head. I can see it. What is your favorite Halloween candy? I got into some real contentious conversations about this.
Well, I mean, your idea of Halloween candy is just fucked to begin with. Yeah, give me an Almond Joy and a Mounds. Those are for poor people. Well, okay,
no, they're not. They're expensive.
What's third place? Oh, Bit O' Honey. That's delicious. No,
wrong.
You like all shit candy. You can't go.
So what's your favorite?
Classic
what is your
Reese's
favorite?
Or a Twix.
Okay, first of all, I love Twix. I also love Reese's. Problem I have with Reese's, you have to have the foil wrapped individual ones. Anything else, the chocolate to peanut butter ratio is too skewed and I don't like it. I don't like it. I can't eat it. You have the foil wrapped ones like around Easter, I'll crush a bag of those things. The elite candy, in my mind,
is wrong.
It kind of aligns with how I see donuts. See, guys, when it comes to donuts, people who work in an office can probably understand where I'm coming from. You always have the person who brings in boxes of donuts when they come in from out of town. You know, a salesman who's in once a quarter, and he's like, well, I'll bring donuts for the guys who work in the office. Do you know what my favorite donut is?
Fry cake.
The unsweetened, unsugared, unglazed, just plain fry cake donut. That with a cup of coffee. And you know what the beauty of it is, Chris? I don't have to race anybody to make sure I get my favorite donut. I can saunter on down there and just pick up the plain donut at any time of the morning. The bums rush that comes in to grab all the crullers and the anything with, dude, sprinkles. What are you, 12? You're going to eat a donut with sprinkles on it? Get out of here. It's 10 a.m. That's dessert. Stop this. I take the same approach when it comes to candy. I'm a minimalist. Almond Joy is one of the greatest candies on earth, and I don't understand why coconut, chocolate, and almond get so much hate.
It's the almond and the coconut.
I'm at the door of one of the houses with my son, and the guy's old, and he sounded like he'd had a couple. He was slurring his words a little bit, which is hilarious because I used to do the same thing when I was single and handing out candy, which is a whole other problem unto itself. Chris, being a single guy at the age of like 27 in a neighborhood just handing out candy, it's suspect.
No, my lights will be off.
You get on a list. I'm pretty sure you get put on a list for that. But he told my son, he's like, it's late. There's not even late. The weather was just awful because it's Buffalo. And he goes, take some more. There's nobody coming. And I see the Almond Joy sitting right on top there. And I'm not going to grab it because I'm an adult, but I'm silently trying to will my child to take it off the top of the bowl. And when he didn't, there was a part of me that died inside a little bit. It's like, oh, it was right there. Could have had that Almond Joy.
It's Jack doesn't like shit candy.
But I did get one. I did get my favorite candy.
Mounds.
Nope. Not Almond Joy, not Mounds, not the Reese's wrapped in foil.
Necco wafers.
Necco wafers. I've been told that this is Depression era candy.
It is.
Why? It's delicious.
My mom used to get them for a nickel.
When? In like 87?
No, in the 60s and 70s.
Necco wafers. Some lunatic in my neighborhood. First of all, this is what I love. I know that it's just me. I'm the problem. But also there's some other idiot in my neighborhood who is handing them out, Chris. I don't know who. I now feel like I have to CSI this and figure out who was the person who gave away the Necco wafers. Because, well, I kind of appreciate it also. You're an idiot, too.
It'll be easy to figure out. All you got to do is just be aware of everything that's happening in your neighborhood and just wait for the next person who dies. They gave out the Necco wafers.
What is the exact problem you have with it? Is it because they're chalky and they're just...
If I wanted a Necco wafer, I'd go to church.
Go to church. Well, this weekend we are going to be treated to the Necco wafer of NFL football games when the Buffalo Bills travel to Miami to take on the Dolphins. The time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard, the place, Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens, Florida. Chris, what's the lineup to? Now with the Jaelan Phillips trade, that needs to have moved the line a little, right?
I'm going to guess.
Because it was 8.5.
I'm going to guess it's like 10.5 now. Let me look.
Well, he does that. On the call, we have Andrew Catalon and Jason McCourty as the CBS crew of the day, which after
9.5.
9.5. So a 1-point movement in the line with the trade of Jaelan Phillips. Chris, Andrew Catalon.
Those are preseason games.
So if you're doing, we have a preseason all-star here calling this game. Can we assume that that's what the network thinks of this game?
Yeah, I'm going to take a shot here that it's going to be mostly New York State, Wyoming, and South Florida that get it. Maybe Vermont and New Hampshire. I don't even know what time the Jets play, but I would say it's like a New York State only game, Wyoming and South Florida.
I feel like now that we record on Tuesdays, we need to start keeping track of this and make it a game. How many times can Chris nail the broadcast chart?
Oh, I put it up for a previous game, and I was way off.
Like Dumb and Dumber?
Yes.
Injuries of note for the Miami Dolphins. It's not an injury, but Jaelan Phillips traded away from the team today. God only knows what that does to who knows, maybe that opens up more opportunities for guys who are getting buried on the depth chart, but also... I mean, that can't sit well with players on the team, right?
No.
Hey, up-and-coming pass rusher, guy who's really trying to get out here and earn his payday, and you ship him off unceremoniously for a third-round pick. And you don't even get any cap relief for it. It's wild. You also look at Julian Hill, who is once again questionable, which has been kind of a albatross for their offense this season for a number of reasons that I think we're going to talk about tonight. Ashton Davis at safety, questionable. Like, that guy's just had such bad luck. Like, imagine you spend that many years playing for the Jets and you go, hey, I'm going to sign up for the Miami Dolphins because at least they've been respectable. And you get there the year they're a 2-win football team. Also, Ollie Gordon had an ankle injury in the last game. It'll be interesting to see whether or not he can contribute because he's been acting as the running back 2 in this offense, and he's made some big plays for them. For Buffalo, it's a little more straightforward. Shaq Thompson, Joshua Palmer, Daquan Jones, Teron Johnson. None of the 4 played in their last game.
Michael Hoyt.
You know, I wasn't going to grab the whiskey this early. Why do you got to bring that up? Michael Hoyt out for the year. Just what a savage. I love that guy. I hope he can come back and be some of what he was pre-Achilles injury. Shaq Thompson, I think, is important. I think he's important for depth. I think he's important for a game like this, but not having him last week worked for us, even though everyone hated Terrell Bernard for reasons they don't understand. Joshua Palmer coming back will help. Daquan Jones, they said all of these guys are supposed to practice, at least in some capacity, and they'll figure it out. Given what the week is, do you almost think that if these guys are borderline, you sit them anyway?
Correct.
Okay. And then the one I think I feel the worst for is Dorian Strong. Coach used some language this week when he was talking about injuries, and I don't like that, where he comes out and basically says that, you know, with respect to him, I'm not going to talk about his injury or his situation. That usually is catastrophic, right?
That sounds like career ending.
Yeah, and I don't love that because normally if a player, I mean, how many people have we put on IR this year? McDermott hasn't spoken that way. So to hear it in relation to this young kid, I think that's tough. And I think that, I don't know, I just very much think that it's going to get worse on his front before we hear anything else. I don't know. This is a game, though, where I'm ready for an emotional letdown of sorts. I'm ready for the bottom to fall out of this thing. And am I wrong for thinking that? Like, we just have the high of beating the Kansas City Chiefs. And I want to believe that we're going to go into Miami and just embarrass these guys. I want to believe that we've found the secret. Like, oh, there they go. They found their identity and we're good to go. I don't know. I feel like Miami mixes it up with teams early, and I feel like this thing could look a lot closer than we want it to. I mean, it's the NFL. You shouldn't be boat racing teams the way Seattle boat raced the Commanders on Sunday Night Football. That shouldn't happen because it's the NFL. You're paying these guys millions of dollars to do a job.
But Josh Allen also owns the Dolphins.
True. So I guess you do, like, what's your expectation for this game?
My expectation is we go down to Miami and we fuck shit up like we usually do. It'll probably be a 28-10 game.
Expecting that
I'm
we're going to go down there
another Carolina game.
I'm expecting them to have because they have more talent than Carolina. Even as injured as they are, I think they're more talented than Carolina. And in that way, I expect them to make this a game early if our defense doesn't show up.
Didn't they lose to Carolina?
The Dolphins?
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I think that's one of the games where Rico Dowdle ran for hundreds of yards. I don't know. It's hard to gauge what this team is because the actions today, sending away a player the way they did, the fact that they allowed their GM to like, hey, we mutually parted ways. How do you mutually part ways with a GM? Do you have lunch with the owner and you go?
Well, Grier begged for that to be the release.
Well, hang on. This is the question. Do you go out to a nice restaurant, you sit down and you go, all right, so hear me out. Don't fire me. Hear me out. I've done a bad job building rosters for half a decade. Don't fire me. Let me just unceremoniously slink away into the darkness so that someday I can work in the NFL again.
Yeah, he probably said, I've been here since 2000, started as a scout, Now you're firing me as the GM. I can't really go any higher unless they do a vice president of football operations. That would be the next logical chain of command I can go up. But you're obviously not happy with what I'm doing. So can we, just because of my tenure, 16 to 20 years with the Dolphins, can we please say mutually part ways?
Let me put this in the context of dating, Chris. How many times have you ever mutually parted ways with a woman?
Never.
I have one. We showed up to dinner. We had met at a party. Both of us were drinking. She thought I was funny. I thought she was interesting. We got to dinner and found out that was mostly the booze talking. She found me offensive and abrasive, and I found her dull and uninteresting. And that all kind of materialized before like our appetizers came out. And so we're sitting there. Now, I had like a date restaurant here in Buffalo. It was
Tony Rome's.
No, La Isidoro. La Isidoro on Camp Road in Hamburg, because it was far enough away from where I lived where it's like, nah, there's no proximity here. If you're creepy or a stalker, I can just bail. And this is the end. So things are going awfully. We put our food order in. Like, I ordered the veal cutlets like I always did. And she ordered something. And I just remember like knowing after we put our food order in that it was a mistake. And she's on her phone. And this is not even smartphones. This is the day of flip phones. So she's probably playing Snake for all I know. And finally I go, listen, you're not happy. You're not having a good time. There's clearly somewhere else you'd rather be. And she laughed. She goes, well, my friends are just out at happy hour. I was like, you should probably be there. She's like, well, is it cool? I go, yeah, it's cool. Don't worry about it. I got it. I got it covered. The waitress comes out. She leaves. And the waitress comes and she laughed and I laughed. I was like, bye. This is not going well. And she laughed. She's like, no, it's not so bad. I go, no, it's terrible. This date is a bomb. And we all did. So she leaves. The waitress comes out and feels bad for me. And I'm like, no. I sent her packing. I sent her home. We had the conversation. We're in agreement that this is a terrible date. I just recognized it early enough that I saved us all the trouble. And she goes, well, do you want me to see if I can cancel your order in the kitchen? I go, absolutely not. You bring that out. Because whatever she ordered, I remember thinking like, ooh, I'd like to try that. And I took all that food and I went and met Davini and the guys at Doc Sullivan's in South Buffalo. And at midnight, it was me and Davini standing in the kitchen eating like cold Italian food. Just, they were like, what are you doing here? I'm like, it was a bomb of a night. That's the only time anything's ever gone mutually in that way. It's the only experience I've ever had with it. And I can't imagine that was the conversation with Stephen Ross, but it would be funny if it was. You're not having fun, right, Stephen? All right, well, then I'm just going to hit the old dusty trail. What do you think about that? And so on what is a weird day for a lot of teams around the NFL, we bring up this week's guest, Mr. Alf Arteaga. You know him, you love him, or some of you don't love him, and that actually makes this all that much funnier. Alf, first of all, I know that there's a lot going on over there for Dolphins fans right now, but I've got a burning question. It's been on my mind ever since the tailgate this weekend, when it occurred to me as I was drinking, like this thing popped in my head and I said, I got to remember to ask Alf this. The Dolphins are fresh off mutually parting ways, which is one of the craziest things. Like, imagine knowing that there's a guy who like could have been brought up on war crimes and he and the country mutually agree that he's going to like, hey, you could just ship me off to some other country. That's fine. You can deport me. That's fine. And they do that and you go, wait a minute. What do you mean mutually? This was a conversation? How did you not fire this guy and do it with aplomb? Do it with like how they fire clowns out of a cannon in the circus? Why was that not Chris Grier's exit? And like, for as many questions as I have about that, they start talking about the trade deadline. And I guess my question is, if you were a GM trying to approach the Miami Dolphins about a potential trade, if you're Howie Roseman, who says, hey, I got to have a pass rusher and I need Jaelan Phillips, who are you negotiating with? Is it ownership? Is it the AGM? Because I mean, if I'm the owner, I don't know that I trust an assistant GM to. It's like, hey, I don't know if you're a part of this. How does a trade get orchestrated for a team that has no GM?
The interim GM, Champ Kelly, was put in charge, and he was given, I guess, unfinished business. I talked about this on the podcast several times this season, that the trade deadline was going to be important for Miami this year, mostly due to Jaelan Phillips' situation, because you needed to have a very good GM to gauge his worth at the deadline, because if you were going to keep him, how much were you going to pay him? It's a guy that's coming off of an Achilles and a torn ACL in back-to-back seasons. He's only played 13 games in 2 seasons. So they needed to get that part right. Evidently, what they just did is they just punted on it. So they just said, give us what we can get. They paid off the balance of his contract for this year, which was, I had a big problem with, because if you're going to, if you want Jaelan Phillips, who was one of the, because look, I don't believe none of, and I've said it at the time, Jalen Waddle was never available. Devon Achane was never available. Those are 24 and 26-year-old players, okay, that are entering. Achane has 2 years left, and Waddle is entering a season where he's making $11.6 million, and then he starts to get paid the year after that, right? So it just made no sense to blow up your cap, trade your two best young players besides Patrick Paul, and get what for it? First round picks in the hopes of what? To replace those guys? Essentially, is what the Jets did today.
Like I'm looking at a tweet right here from you earlier this afternoon where it says they sold Jaelan Phillips for a fire sale price. No preferred third, no cap relief. This is the kind of move you end up regretting.
Now, of course, Jaelan Phillips could get injured again, and then the Dolphins are going to look like geniuses. Or they could maybe sign Jaelan Phillips. He's a free agent at the end of the season. And then they really look smart, right? Or Jaelan Phillips takes off. And then you're just looking like an idiot taking a late third-round pick and then paying for the privilege of him playing for the Eagles the rest of the season. So I was not hot for the trade. Had they gotten the Jets' third-round pick and paid the $5 million, I would have said, okay, you know. Now you're talking about getting a top 60 pick instead of a top 100 pick. I get it. You want to, you're basically paying the premium to move up 25 spots maybe or something like that. So I get it. But for a late third and we pay the freight, nah, not for me. I wasn't a fan of the move.
And so then, you go into the rest of this and you say, okay, the Dolphins are clearly sellers. This is going to be fine because at least it seems like they have a plan. And then it also seemed like you had a huge bone to pick with the fact that they made no other moves. You were like, wait a minute, that's all you had? There was no actual fire sale? You gave away, like, you have this hilarious tweet where it says this fire sale, and it just says 0% off today on select items outside of a building.
Yeah, it's essentially what they did today. Like the talk around town is that, like, they couldn't meet the price on Bradley Chubb. And the price on Bradley Chubb is, you want to pay his salary? Give me anything. You know what I mean? Like, Bradley Chubb will be 30 years old next year. He's not playing well this year. Seems slow to me, okay? He is coming off of a year where he didn't play. He didn't play last year due to his knee injury the year before against the Ravens. Remember, he had the knee injury a week before they played Buffalo. Remember, we played you guys on Week 18? The week before Week 18, Bradley Chubb went down with a catastrophic knee injury, so he ended up missing the entire 2024 season. He comes back this year, and he doesn't look like Bradley Chubb. So I would have taken anything for him. And I said earlier today, like, this is, like, the easy part is just offloading talented players for cap relief, which is what I probably would have done. Like, I'm not touching Aaron Brewer. I'm not touching Patrick Paul or Jalen Waddle or Devon Achane. Maybe not even Jordan Brooks, especially not Chop Robinson, right? Or any of the defensive tackles. But somebody like a Minkah Fitzpatrick who gets money next year, and Bradley Chubb who gets some money next year. Yeah, if you guys want to pick up the freight on those guys, I'm taking pretty much anything, because that's going to help up. That's going to help the Dolphins for 2027 when it's time for them to have cap space. Because this year was a reset, right, for the cap. because they couldn't spend. Next year is when they add draft picks. They can't spend too much next year either. But 2027, they're supposed to have some cap space. Now they have less because they couldn't offload some of these draft picks. I mean, some of these players.
And that's where I think about long-term the impact of the trade deadline. You know, we're gearing up. We're about to record a quick show before we go live at 8:00 about the trade deadline. And I have some thoughts. We all have some thoughts about the Bills just inaction. Just the Bills in action. That doesn't mean that there wasn't.
I was shocked.
Attempts.
I was shocked, really. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean that there weren't attempts, but also when you see some of the prices and you go, wait, you did what now? Rashid Shaheed for what are throwaway picks that I just have a lot of thoughts. But with that said, you take a look at the aftermath of the trade deadline day, and it seems like there's some teams that clearly sent a message. The message the Jets sent today is that they are punting on all of this, and they're going to start over again with what they think is a coach and a GM that they're going to give the opportunity to build something and say, here's gobs of premium capital. Don't screw it up like the last guys. Like, who was their GM who drafted Zach Wilson? Chris, do you know?
Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas had 5 first-round picks in 2021 and 2022, and they drafted some good players, but they threw it all away with a couple of draft picks. Like, look, Elijah Vera Tucker is a nice player, but he's had 2 catastrophic injuries. Zach Wilson's terrible. Well, right there's 2 of the 5.
The Zach Wilson thing ruined everything, right? And so now you're looking at this in the context of the Miami Dolphins, who the Buffalo Bills are lining up to be playing this week. And I think so much of this conversation is more philosophical than it is X's and O's, because I get to see your coach, who very much has seemed like since the last time we played each other has kind of unraveled a little bit. Like when he gets to the podium after these losses, it's gotten so bad that Dolphins fans have taken to counting his ums and his uhs and his stutters, and they've noted that it's gotten worse. Game over game to where I think he hit. Like
I have some breaking news on that, because I was talking about that. Like, like I was talking about. I talked about it on the pod. I talked about it on OnlyFans, our Discord, and I said, "Listen to this press conference. Now listen to this one." The morning after Chris Grier was fired, he only had 3 ums, and the 3 ums were like naturally placed. But before, it was something like 30.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a weight has been lifted off of his shoulders, and I keep telling people, everybody's, oh yeah, they're shit canning everybody at season's end. Don't be so sure.
Well, and so this was a thing that your partner, Chris Kaufman, tweeted out and basically said, like, hey, this idea that, you know, because he comes out and makes this public statement. When you watch that Thursday night football game against the Ravens, there is no way you walk away from that saying we are a highly composed NFL football team, that we are a composed offense, that we have the requisite rhythm and the protection, and that because nothing worked. And when it fails that badly, you can throw stones at what Tua Tagovailoa is or is not, but 6 points? 6 points and a mountain of miscues. And then in the aftermath, he comes out and makes a statement as the head coach and says, well, I'm going to keep starting Tua Tagovailoa because I think he gives us the best chance to win. And I'm looking forward here because Chris Kaufman had right here. Quarterback decision is leverage for Mike McDaniel. Ongoing fire sale makes clear where the owner's mind is, but McDaniel making clear that he'll start whoever gives the team the best shot of winning. Translation, tell me my job is safe and I'll start Ewers or Wilson. I don't care. I'll do whatever. But if you tell me my job is still on the line, I'm going to throw Tua out there every single time and we're going to see where that gets us. I think there's something to that. I mean, I don't think that his job is necessarily in danger, but also I think that there's a certain, and then he ends it with, we've been here before. So when was the last time you guys experienced this power dynamic?
Adam Gase, his last season here, when I guess the directive came down and I guess Stephen Ross told him, look, we're going to strip the team down. I just hired Chris Grier and we're going to rip it down to the studs. And essentially, it's a tank year. And Adam Gase said, I'm not for that. And then that's when Stephen Ross said, well, then you're fired. And they hired Brian Flores that offseason. So, yeah, that's the last time that happened. But that Ravens game was a microcosm of their entire season. Like at halftime, you have 229 yards of offense, and the Ravens had just crossed 102. Derrick Henry has 20 yards. You have 3 turnovers, okay, including 1 fumble at your own 5-yard line after you get a first down from your own goal line, another fumble inside the 10, and 1 on a kickoff, and you're down 14-6. And at the end of the half, you're thinking, man, we really kicked their ass, didn't we? Why are we down more a score to these people? And then, of course, it's one of those things where the defense and the offense, they just look at the scoreboard and they're like, it really felt like we kicked their ass, didn't it? Why are we down 8 points? And then the third quarter starts and you just get eviscerated on all fronts. Offense, defense, everything. And that's been happening all year. Their fourth quarters are something else. They've been tied or had a lead in 5 games in fourth quarters. They've lost them all. How is that possible? You know, how is stuff like that possible? You know, and to let you know, the Bills game was the widest margin because that one we just made it to the fourth quarter tied. The rest of the games we had leads. The other 4 we had leads in the fourth quarter. The Bills game we just tied it. You know, so we didn't have a lead, so we couldn't blow a lead in the fourth quarter.
What I find wild, like you want to talk about statistical anomalies in the game of football, because I see this all the time where people go, well, if you look at this box score and you look at this pattern of possessions, it'll tell you something about a football team. I don't know what to make of what the Dolphins were on Thursday night, because you're talking about a team that somehow ran a 5-play drive, 5 plays that took 3 minutes and 32 seconds and netted them 12 yards. 3 minutes and 32 seconds for 5 plays is a hell of a lot of time. When you then compare it to the fact that on the next possession, it took them 52 seconds. They gained 4 plays. They kick a field goal. But I'll do you one better. They turn it over on downs in the second quarter. A 10-play, 4-minute and 33-second drive. So somehow an extra minute, and they doubled the number of plays that they were able to run in that one drive, and it led to a missed field goal. But it was at least a scoring attempt. That doesn't, like, I don't understand what I'm looking at here. How did you eat up 3 minutes and 30 seconds on a 12-yard, 5-play drive? And to me, I look at that anomaly and I say, okay, you were playing almost what seemed like conservatively the drive before that. You took 5 minutes, but you ran 10 plays and got 57 total yards. And so it's like, okay, on this one drive, what the hell were you people doing? And then you go to the late third and then into the fourth quarter, and it's 1 minute possession, 1 minute and 30 seconds, 1 minute and 30 seconds. It's 3 plays, 4 plays, 5 plays, and they can't even string a double-digit series of plays together.
That play, that drive that I think went long for a few plays, I think that's the one that had the 36-yard gain called back and then the 24-yard gain called back. So that's and the 36-yard gain, that was a terrible call. I think you saw it, which was the Ollie Gordon, I fall down. And what made it worse is that our running backs coach, Eric Stousville, loses his mind on Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon tries to kill him. And at the end, who was right? Ollie Gordon was right. He didn't touch the guy, you know? So that should have been first and goal after a Waddle catch at the 5-yard line. It's not. It ends up becoming 3rd and forever at your own 40. So, yeah, that game had pretty much everything. And it had the most important thing that's happened this season. In the offseason, you essentially, you almost announced it. Austin Jackson's back. And, you know, he wasn't here last year. He was out last year for half the season, you know, and we weren't very good down the stretch. But we got Austin Jackson back, and we signed James Daniels. Those guys played 3 and 11 snaps this season. And they spent the rest of the season trying out new people at right guard all season long. And of course, Larry Borum, who for whatever reason he I don't know, maybe he's been put there to kill Tua or something. Like maybe it's a conspiracy. Maybe there's an out on on Tua's contract due to insurance or something. Because Borum has been terrible from day one, and it's just been a disaster on the offensive line.
And so ahead of this, I have to bring up the Buffalo Bills just put on something of a clinic in terms of how to muddy up an offensive line and how to muddy the waters for a quarterback, like one of the NFL's best talents at the position. And so now they're going to go down to Miami and they're going to play a bunch of players, one of whom you were really bullish on. Let's talk about Jonas Savania. You really you talked very highly of him in the preseason. You talked about he loved the pick, the fit. He was going to be your starter, no concerns. And it seems like more often than not, he looks like he's a little bit. It just looks like he's in over. He looks like a rookie. He looks in over his head on a lot of reps. Is this just maybe you're starting to see like it doesn't really matter who you draft and plug in here if the coach? I mean, is this a coaching issue at this point?
It could be some play calling as well, but Jonas Savannah, he's been better the last 2 weeks, which is to say that, that's like saying, well, I haven't been hit by a bus in the last 2 days, so I'm doing I'm doing all right, or I go to my doctor and I come back and it says, look, I don't have terminal cancer, so that's that, so I'm winning, you know what I mean? So you know what I mean? Like, it's time to celebrate, but he's been bad. And yeah, he's been better the last 2 weeks. Like everybody keeps saying, hey, against Atlanta, everybody's like, it's pretty damn good. And I'm like, it's 1 game out of 8. What about the rest of the games?
You talk about statistical outliers.
We have this discussion all the time on the podcast, and we've had it on Discord, because a lot of people are like, Patrick Paul, elite. He's been elite. And I'm like, he's been pretty damn good. And then Simon, Simon on our pod, he's like a glass half full of cyanide guy. And he's like, he's definitely been way above average because he doesn't want, but it's trending in the right direction. And I keep reminding him, he has Jonas Savannah next to him. And somehow Patrick Paul hasn't allowed a sack and 2 pressures all season. I think he's the best left tackle in the history of the sport.
I look at the numbers and there's a lot of things like offensively, the struggles make sense. And to see Jaelan Phillips depart obviously sets up the locker room. I'm sure the vibes are going to be off, right? But in terms of personnel, you didn't see the fire sale that you had alluded to and said, hey, if you were responsibly managing this team and this is the move you were going to make, you should have gone farther than you did. So when I look at that, this is a defense that did hold the Atlanta Falcons to hilariously 45 yards after they just ran roughshod. We Bills fans watched them run the ball down our throats. And yet you guys did a stellar job stopping the run. Now, what do I need to know about this? Like, is this real? Like, what happened in that game because you guys have given up decent rushing yardage in most of your games, like league-wise.
Yeah, Derrick Henry went crazy in the second half of our game. I think he had 90 yards rushing in the second half.
Sure, and you guys now have the 30th ranked run defense in terms of total yardage, but that one game stands out, and I have to ask the question, what happened in that scenario? And also, what is it that you guys plan on, like, what do you foresee them trying to manufacture to stop what is like the one thing that powers the Buffalo Bills right now, which is our rushing attack?
Well, what they did against Atlanta was kind of anomalous. They played a perfect game on defense. They had 0 missed tackles. I thought that it translated to the first half of the Ravens game, because I keep trying to tell people, like, look, Lamar Jackson's one of the best passers in the game, and in my opinion, he's probably maybe behind Burrow, the second best pure passer in the NFL. So it was just a matter of time he was going to get to you, right? And he did. 205 yards, most of it in the second half, 4 touchdown passes. He was absolutely perfect in that game, and he kept making big plays with his legs, escaping the rush, finding people down the field. So he was spectacular. But I thought they did a really nice job against Derrick Henry in the first half. And like I told you, the second half, it was just, you start looking at the scoreboard, it's 21-6 to start the third quarter. And now they're just going to nickel and dime you to death the rest of the game. And it's going to be Derrick Henry left, right, middle, toss, and it's going to be 4 or 5 yards. And that's why he got the 90 yards in the second half. What they've done is kind of simplified the defense a little bit, played more Benito Jones, kind of rotated the rookies at defensive tackle instead of putting such a big load on them. And they've kind of responded. But it's, like I tell everybody else, it's if you're going to sell out to do one thing, they're not good enough to do it all, right? And maybe against the Falcons, it was a bit anomalous because it was Kirk Cousins and Drake London didn't play. So if you watch the game, it was obvious they just didn't respect Kirk Cousins. They just decided, we stop Bijan Robinson, we win. So they loaded up to stop Bijan Robinson, and it worked. Against the Ravens, you can't do that because he's going to cut you up with his passing game and his tight ends and his wide receivers. And that's their issue, is they're not good enough to do it all. They're good enough maybe to do one of the two things. So maybe they stop the run, but then they could just get Josh Allen. You know what I mean?
Well, and we've seen that happen before. We've seen the games where you guys cover everybody. Go back to the 2 years ago when you guys lost in Week 18 at home to the Buffalo Bills. Down the stretch, they're making great coverage plays, and it's Josh Allen with his legs for 18 yards. It's Josh Allen with his legs for 12 yards. So then they have no choice but to commit either an extra safety or an extra linebacker to the box, and then it's Dalton Kincaid catching passes and running into the red zone. This year, our tight end has become, I keep calling it the secret sauce. It really has become the thing that is, it's James Cook, and then it's that tight end room that powers this team. And I almost think that that's harder for a team to match up with than having, hey, you've got a star wide receiver in Stephon Diggs and a bunch of wide receiver 3s and 4s scattered around the roster. Because now they can run larger personnel groupings and yet still throw out of it and be dynamic out of those tough, traditionally rushing, rush attack heavy personnel groups. But then they can still just do that when you.
Yeah, that's been a thing all across the league. I don't know if things have changed after the Baltimore game, but Miami was the best after the Falcons game. They were the best 22 personnel team in the league, meaning a fullback, a running back, 2 tight ends in the league. Most of that had to do, and that's fair warning, most of that had to do with the resurgence of Darren Waller, who kind of went nuts for like 3 weeks.
He helped my fantasy team to a bunch of wins that I wasn't entitled to simply because I was the only one dumb enough to pick him up.
So, and remember, Tyreek Hill went down. So they're essentially was just rolling out Jalen Waddle, Darren Waller, Julian Hill, Devon Achane, and Ollie Gordon. Like that was their offense, their starting offense. And it was working for them. But there's been a resurgence in the league. If you watch Seattle, they're doing it out of big personnel as well. And we know Buffalo does that out of 22 personnel. And Kansas City lately has been trying to. And Kansas City has, in my opinion, they have a top 5. I think that the Bills have the best tight end room. Kansas City's tight end room. I know Travis Kelce is near done, but the guys that are with him in that room are pretty damn good. That's a thing that's happening in the league. We know the Ravens want to do that. Like the Ravens want to stay in 22 personnel if they can. So yeah, that's a thing. That's a trend in the league. And yeah, that's something that Miami is probably not going to be able to match up too well against because that's going to get them out of their preferred alignments.
What is your preferred at this point in the season for Miami? Given the injuries and everything that's gone wrong, what are their preferred defensive packages look like?
It involves Minkah Fitzpatrick at the line playing nickel.
Okay.
So if you see Minkah Fitzpatrick lined up against Dalton Kincaid, that's the best that they've looked this season. Like that's pretty much the best they've looked because it's given them opportunities to blitz him off the edge, and he's actually made plays. Like we were talking about this on the Discord, and I think my partner talked about it on Twitter as well. We don't want to get rid of Bradley Chubb and Minkah Fitzpatrick because they're bad players. We want to get rid of them because they're good players that might help us win some meaningless games.
Joe Shad is being ratioed right now as we speak for putting out a tweet that said, hey guys, Hear me out. Even if we lose to Buffalo, we've got the Saints, we've got the Mariota Commanders. We could go 7-10. First of all, why would you tweet that out? What do you think the response to that's going to be? Dummy? Like, and he's being ratioed as he should be. I think that there's a lot here that I'm concerned with in terms of, hey, we're a bad team. In terms of outside receiver, I could see this being a Keon Coleman game, Chris. Some nonsense game where it's like, oh, they really don't have a great outside boundary corner presence, and Keon Coleman seems like a lazy receiver at this point.
Well, we have one. We have one, and then we have a penalty machine on the other side, and Jack Jones. But Rasul Douglas, that's another guy I was saying, why aren't the Packers? I've seen the Packers play football. They have no cornerbacks. And I'm like, why aren't they calling us? Like, the guy played there. Guy's having a good season. Rasul Douglas is playing pretty damn good. Like, he's playing well in all of these games. Like, I was like, why aren't you throwing us a pick? Especially since his contract is essentially paid for. Like, he came here for $3 million. All of it's pretty much already paid. Like, all he's owed is game checks for the rest of the season. So, yeah, that's the best they've looked. They've also done very weird things on defense. Like, they've buried Chop Robinson for whatever reason. And that's on Anthony Weaver because he gets asked every single week, how come you didn't play Chop Robinson enough? And he goes, oh, yeah, I got to remind. Same thing with Willie Gay. They asked him that, and he's like, I got to remind myself, I got to get those guys into the game. I'm like, dude, you're the defensive coordinator. Like, write it on a Post-it note if you have to.
We had that with James Cook against Atlanta. Joe Brady, oh, yeah, I got to play James Cook.
And then the coach had to come out and go, hey, I had a conversation with the offensive coordinator about it. We have an understanding now. When you have to have those types of conversations, like, hey, we just paid this guy a ton of money. He might be the most talented guy in our offense besides our quarterback. Why isn't he on the field? Why is he playing 48% of our snaps?
And Chop Robinson's a weird one because he did have a knee injury in preseason. He aggravated it against the Patriots, and now he has a concussion. Although they're saying he might be off of the protocol for this game, but we'll know more on Thursday, I think is what they said, right? But they've used that excuse like, oh, no, he's nursing an injury, and then as of late, it's like, oh, he's in the protocol. So, and I'm like, he wasn't in any of these things when you were burying him against, Carolina and Atlanta. Even against Atlanta, he didn't play enough. Like, he's playing these 20 snaps. This guy was one of the finalists for Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. This guy had a 1.5 5 pressure game against Deion Dawkins. 1.5 sack, 5 pressure game against Deion Dawkins, one of the best left tackles in all of football. And now he's buried somehow in the depth chart. And we're playing people by the name of Matthew Judon ahead of him. And it's not 2014,
It's astounding to me how far the Miami Dolphins have fallen, but it's reflected in all their statistics. And then one of the things about the offense, this was something you used to talk about. You talked about the fullback importance and how important, like Alec Ingold was to the offense. And then you looked at the tight end room and how last year you saw that there was a tight end who became very important to the production of this offense. And then after Tyreek Hill went down, you saw how Darren Waller off the street became important to the production of the offense. How much of your offense's hindered performance has to do with the fact that your tight end depth chart's just been decimated?
It has a lot to do with that. Even now, Julian Hill, he's a favorite punching bag of fans down here because they see him, run a little bow route and he drops the ball and everybody's, oh my God, he can't catch a cold. Yeah, well, that's not what he's there for. He's our version of Jackson Hawes, although Jackson Hawes has some receiving chops. He's a blocking tight end. Like he's the inline guy that helps your offense run. He's been injured this year, on and off. So, that's been a problem. And they don't help themselves when they do things like they did against the Ravens. We talked about it before the game. We were like, watch the inactive list. Watch the inactive list because for whatever reason against Atlanta, they activated all 3 running backs. Achane, Ollie Gordon, and Jalen Wright. And they used all 3 running backs. Sometimes they used 2 of them together. They had one play where they had all three on the field at the same time. And then against the Ravens, Jalen Wright is inactive, and they activated Taj Washington, another fast, small receiver. Of course, that's the guy that gets the first down and fumbles at the 5-yard line, you know? So, you know, they do very, very weird things. Sometimes they don't realize what they're actually good at. What they're actually good at is what's given them their results this season, which is running out of heavy personnel and play action. Simple as that. Their biggest play of the season came in 22 personnel, the 46-yard touchdown to Jalen Waddle. The second 43-yard touchdown to Jalen Waddle came in 22 personnel again. So why is this happening, and why don't they just replicate it over and over again? At this point, it's not worth it anymore, right? But it's how you got here.
And that's what I was going to ask. So how much of this, we talk about the things that could have given them success. Chop Robinson. Hey, here's a guy, but you've neglected him for huge parts of the season, and now you're a 2-win football team. Hey, if your offense just stuck with 22 personnel and found a way to make that work, you might be way more successful than the team that, like, when I'm looking at your scores, Dolphins, 1-4 over the last 5, and they've scored less than 10 in 2 of the last 3. You go, why is this breaking down? The wheels have fallen off the bus, and it's because they're trying to do all the things that they're not. It just very much strikes me from a guy watching box scores and trying to look at some of the finer analytics, but really not pouring myself into it. Can I say assertively ahead of this one that the Miami Dolphins have kind of degenerated into this identityless team where they got away from the things that probably gave them any semblance of structure?
Yeah, and it took too long to do the necessary things. Mike McDaniel especially, he had a pretty good press conference last week when he said, if we got to change our play style, we will do it. And he'd said that before the Atlanta game. And all of a sudden you watch the Atlanta game, you're like, he did it. Like, he actually did change their play style. And then we play the Ravens, and it's like, nope, we're back to what we used to do.
So the Buffalo Bills coming in hot off a win off, the Kansas City Chiefs. There's no Bills fan out there who will tell you, one, that they feel sorry for anything happening to your Miami Dolphins, or two, that they're worried about this game. If there's anything that you think can and will work for the Dolphins this weekend, what is it?
They got to force turnovers. That's the only way that they can stay in this game and have a chance to win. Oddly enough, and I said this before the game earlier in the season. Remember, I told you that I was going to bet the game. Remember, I told you I like Miami to cover. Bills were what were they? 11.5-point favorites. They win by 10.
Hey, I've made a ton of money this season taking our opponents with the points.
Yeah, and I was like, for whatever reason, Miami plays Buffalo better in Buffalo than they do Miami. So they're going to need an equalizer against the Bills. They're going to need turnovers somehow. They're going to have to create turnovers, and they got to play a perfect game. Because if you go back and you look at that game in Buffalo earlier this season on Thursday Night Football, if they play a perfect game, that thing is going right down to the wire. But they did it. Yeah, you get off the field, you have a pretty good set of downs. You get off the field, and Zach Sealer runs into the kicker. You guys convert that into a first down, and it was a legitimate penalty. You convert that into a first down, and you get a touchdown that puts you ahead. Tua throws the interception late on that flood concept that I keep posting clips every single week. I don't know if you saw the one that I posted of Justin Herbert throwing a pick six. And I'm like, teams have to stop running these stupid flood concepts to the play side. It's a simple matter of physics. It's going to be too many people to the right of the hash. 7 people standing within 10 yards of each other, and you're trying to put a ball in there. Of course it's going to get intercepted. So, yeah, so they didn't play a clean game. They played kind of a sloppy game, especially in the second half. After playing kind of clean in the first half against the Bills. But all it gained you was a 14-14 tie, right? At halftime. In the second half, you started off okay, and then it was just an implosion.
And that seems to be every game. That seems to be every game lately for the Miami Dolphins, where you guys have 2.5 quarters of decent football in you, and then it all comes off the rails. And I'm here for it, as the kids say.
Yeah, that Charger game was the one, right? Like they kicked their ass for the first half, and they just get absolutely mollywopped in the third quarter. And I'm looking at it like, are we gonna get blown out by 40 points here? And then we come with a furious comeback in the fourth quarter. We take the lead with 58 seconds, and you just knew there's no way, right? There's no way that we just pulled off this miraculous comeback against the Chargers.
For the listeners' context, in the game against the Chargers, guys, these were the 2 drives that Miami actually had the football. They had the ball twice. Their yardage totals were -3 and -8 with an interception and a punt. And they possessed less than 1 minute and 40 seconds on each one. It's like there's no hell quite like being a Dolphins fan in the second half of these football games this year. It's just a nightmare. Every time there's some except for that random Falcons game where everything went perfectly.
Yeah, no, but the Chargers game was especially special because Tua throws the touchdown pass to give him the lead with 46 seconds left or something like that to Darren Waller. And you're thinking to yourself, and even the announcers said it, I think they're going to do that dirty kick that Riley Patterson's been doing. He does a little pooch kick where he drops it like at the 18-yard line with English. And for whatever reason, it always seems to skip right past the returners. And the returners are scrambling for it at the 5-yard line. Once they pick it up, they get to the 20. It's a successful kick, right? Against the Chargers, they just kicked off. Straight up to the Chargers. Guy returns at 40 yards, Just like against the Patriots. Remember how they lost to the Patriots?
Hilarious interception. He never saw
No. They lost by a kickoff return, remember?
Well, kickoff return, but at the end of the game, he never saw Marte Mapu, who's 6'2", 228 pounds.
Yeah, but several things happened in that game. That interception happened before they returned the punt for the touchdown to take the lead, right? And then New England returns the kickoff for a touchdown to give them the lead. And then Miami throws the touchdown pass to Devon Achane, and he steps out of bounds.
Every single thing that can go wrong for the Dolphins, and every time they give you guys glimpses of hope, they take it away. I'm not expecting this to be an overly competitive game for 4 quarters. I'm just not. And that's arrogance, and I know that, and I think you can probably co-sign. I'm going to be able to, I'll be playing with my children by the late third. But what I question is, as we wrap this, does this game hold any sort of impact on what happens with the future of your head coach? Because I feel like it should. I feel like you're here. You have a guy. They've said they're content to keep him around. Chris Grier. They've mutually parted ways, which is the craziest way that a war criminal's ever been allowed to leave the scene of the crime. And yet here's this coach who's this mercurial character who seems to have kind of lost the locker room a little bit. It doesn't sound like the message is resonating anymore, and they're not getting the required results. And yet nobody wants to cut bait yet. And maybe it's because they just don't want to be paying 2 people to do the same job. And so they'll run this out to the end of the season and see what their options are. I don't know all the reasons why they wouldn't, but would a loss here, especially a catastrophic one, don't you think that would move the needle at least a little bit for Stephen Ross?
I think it's how they look. Like if they look just completely listless again, then yeah, I think it'll move the needle a little bit. But they've already come out and said he's going to be here till the end of the season, no matter what. So now, does a win help him some? I guess, but it's really how they finish because they keep talking about it. And especially Stephen Ross mentioned it. He's like, there's too much football left to play, and there's a lot to evaluate. So what does that mean? He's looking for, okay, I fired the GM. Now you show me some results. And it wasn't a full fire sale either, because Chris Kaufman said, look, it's disingenuous to say, all right, you're coaching to save your job, but I'm going to take away all your players. You know? So he essentially just lost one guy, which was kind of 50-50 whether he was going to be here or not. So he has no excuses for his team to look complete garbage for the rest of the year.
Well, I'll raise a glass. Here's to hopefully the Buffalo Bills making Stephen Ross's decision a little bit simpler this Sunday. Alf, you're always a good sport about this stuff. Where can people follow your work and where can they find you on social media?
If you want to listen to our podcast, it's the number 3 yards per carry. Anywhere you get your podcast. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's at 3 yards per carry as well.
Alf Arteaga, he's on Twitter at Alf_Arteaga. 3 yards per carry is the podcast. Go listen to it. Listen to it. We know Drew does.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun when they start their podcasts and the first thing you hear about is the upcoming NFL draft. That's been going on since about week 4. I love it. I love hearing the angst because, Chris, can you co-sign the idea that I don't know there's been many other fan bases and like content creation groups that have been cockier than the Dolphins?
Oh, yeah. Nikki Smokes.
And they've just been humbled. Is Nikki Smokes even relevant anymore?
I don't know. I think he still works at Barstool.
Does he?
He might.
I don't see or hear about him anymore. You want to know why? Because his team had its one moment of fame, and now he's just one other loud douche who works at Barstool. There's nothing special about him anymore. His team's not competitive. They're not relevant. Is he useful to them?
I have no idea.
I don't even know what he really does there. Him and Chris Grier should probably both just look for the easy way out. Just, hey, Dave Portnoy, you gave me a contract. I'm here. I'm doing some stuff, but I'm clearly like, no one knows who I am or where I am or what I'm doing anymore. I'm not funny. I'm not original. So maybe I'll just hit that old dusty trail. We just part ways as friends. Unfortunately, the Miami Dolphins can't do that to the Buffalo Bills. We are stuck with each other. And in that way, I have this week's keys to victory.
Wow, that's a lot of keys. Bigger the keychain, more powerful the man.
One of the primary keys to victory in this game, something Elf touched on earlier. You know, he talked about how their base defense and the most successful version of defense they run is when Minkah Fitzpatrick is playing the slot. He's not wrong. The Buffalo Bills need to play a lot of 22 personnel and really lean on the strength of, Alec Anderson coming in and being able to contribute. Chris, remember when Alec Anderson was everywhere and his name was all the rage and every Bills fan loved him for his contributions?
Yes.
Jackson Hawes has been so good that Alec Anderson is now sitting on the bench. I think that this team has the ability to run a lot of jumbo formations and really impose its will on a team like the Dolphins, who are, if not for forcing turnovers, I don't know what they are. They're not talented. They're not super talented in coverage at the cornerback level. Their safety play is not great. Your linebackers are pedestrian. Your defensive line has 3 good players left, which you might argue is true about the Buffalo Bills. But I think last week's game kind of reframed the conversation around that group. And the Dolphins haven't had that game yet. Or at least they had it against the Falcons, and everyone said, oh, look, the Dolphins front 7 is for real. And then that all evaporated the second that Derrick Henry showed up. And I'd argue James Cook is playing better football than more efficient football than Derrick Henry, correct?
Yes.
I think the biggest dose of our tight end room that we can muster is what we need to give the Dolphins this weekend. I want to see a ton of dual, and I want to see all 3 tight ends out there in the field. Go 3 tight ends and 1 wide receiver and watch what happens. I have a hard time imagining that there's, especially with Dalton Kincaid's separation metrics right now, I have a hard time believing there's anyone in the middle of the field who can contend with that. There's no cornerbacks, there's no linebackers who can keep up with him, but also have his size and his catch radius and his ability to make those catches. Remember that one he made away from his body against Kansas City?
Yeah.
it's that's making him special right now, that he's finally seemed to nail down this part of his game, and Josh trusts it. I think 22 personnel is gigantic. On the defensive side of the ball, I think one of the biggest keys to the game here defensively is going to be to basically take A-Chain away from their attack. Do not allow them to rush the football between the tackles well. A-Chain can run off tackle, and that's fine. We can deal with that. I think that it's when teams have had success running between the tackles that our team finds itself in a lot of trouble. Because you saw, go back to the Carolina game. If Jordan Hancock's not a better athlete, he brings down Rico Dowdle quickly. We had a phenomenal game against the Kansas City Chiefs. But also, we were playing a team with no real north and south running back.
Yeah.
And I think and there's really no running back presence. And they didn't have
Pacheco.
That's what I mean. They didn't have Pacheco. They don't have a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Well, they do have him. He just doesn't play. They don't have an east and west presence. They don't have a running back who has any juice the way that Achane does. And I think that changes the complexion of everyone just assuming our front seven can do what we did to Kansas City to Miami. I think that their talent and the talent of the running back says if you're going to let them win anywhere, let them get to the edge a little bit here and there, but don't you dare let them run right up the middle of your defense. His rushing yards in between the tackles has to be below 3 yards per carry. Otherwise, you're in trouble because that has the ability to sustain drives, and that gives Miami's feeble offense life. Make them work for it. Make that perimeter blocking perfect because they haven't been able to do it for a month and a half of football. Make them earn that. You do that, you're probably going to be able to ball control this thing the same way the Chargers did in the second half of their game and get up on the scoreboard. And then the third key to victory, make sure you have plenty of beer at home and just something to do for the second half. That's how you really win Sunday, is just make sure you have something else you can go do or some other streaming service you can put another game on when this thing gets out of hand inevitably. Chris, I can't imagine that at my house we'll be watching the fourth quarter.
We can go watch ESPN on YouTube TV. Oh, wait.
Yes. Guys, this has been a lot of fun, but we got to get the hell out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. And this has been your Rockpile Report.